Few days ago, Edwin wrote a comment on my video titled Virtual Staging with vray 5. He had an issue with vray material wrapper. The results were not expected even though he followed all the steps. In this quick video, which turned out to be not that quick, I will show you what was his mistake and where the software played the bad guy as well. The video also will cover the perspective match technique, setting up a new vray material wrapper and a few additional tips for great results. And now, let's crack on! This is the scene I received from Edwin. I have not changed anything and it is obvious that something is not right with the render. Upon close look, I've discovered that he is missing his background image, which should be applied from the vray frame buffer. I've added the image, but the issue is still here. There are other things that should be fixed as well. One of them is not obvious at first glance, and that is the double walls which carry the vray material wrapper. They should be thin and single pane. The second issue I see is the perspective match is a bit off and the furniture is intersecting with the floor plane. Here is a cool trick. If you right click on the snap tool and then options, you can enable axis constraints. This will allow you to lock your moving objects with the snap at current axis, and in my case this is Z. My next step would be to rebuild entirely the space with single planes, and I've started with the floor plane. Here is something else I see in the scene. All walls are single objects and their gizmo is not centered, which slows you down when you want to move or adjust the location of these objects. Additionally, they were not locked, so select all objects, go to hierarchy, then click affect pivot only and then center the object. All gizmos on the selected objects will move to the center of each object. But before I start with rebuilding the scene, I wanted to check something else. Another issue was the curtain object and the material itself. It was not only blocking the light, but is not bringing any benefits to the scene as it was behind the camera. This is a thing which I plan to discuss in one of my next videos as well. Despite all of those changes, the problem remained with little improvement, and I gave it a last try to adjust the walls at least a little bit. In the end, it turned out to be pointless, so I've deleted all of the walls and I started my scene from scratch. If you have not watched the perspective match tutorial down the comments, make sure to do so after watching this video, as this is the foundation for every virtual staging, at least with my workflow. I have noticed something else. The verticals were not straight in the image and there was a heavy lens distortion. Here is the rule of thumb in this case. When you work with very distorted images, like this one, always make sure to spread your vanishing lines equally on both ends of the space, and this will ensure at least a little bit your geometry to be in proportions with the space. I've tried fixing the verticals and to some degree the distortions too. The improvement, it is not noticeably huge, but it made sense in this case. For the next few seconds, I will remain silent so you can observe what I did with the scene. I fixed the verticals in Photoshop by using adaptive wide angle option. Let me know in the comments if you don't know how to use this, and I'll make sure to cover in another video entirely for Photoshop. Always, when you make changes to your background images, don't be lazy and make copies of them. When you finish with the amendments, save with different name and reload the new images in all places where you should have your images. You can see how distorted is the image even after my editing. Luckily, this is not an issue, as I will shift the distortion out of the focus and we will not see it at all. And here we see at the left hand side of the image, all the verticals are not really verticals, and this is because of the distortions. The further from the camera of the center of our scene is, the heavier the distortions are. And now I'm making sure that what we see through the camera is straight lines, but in reality, when we are not looking through the camera, our scene will look very wonky. I suggest you always to avoid that approach and use it only in emergency cases or where it is impossible to fix the lens distortions. In this typical scene, we are lucky because our point of interest remains at the center of the scene and not at the ends. Another tip is to stick to the rules and build the rest of your scenes, especially if there are other lights turned on or windows. You may want to add a lamp with a very subtle light intensity and colors to cast some colored light on your objects. This will improve your scene realism. My next step was to make a hole for the vray lamp to serve as a window. It is very important to not scale the lamp, as this will destroy the light intensity ratio. Use instead the width and length parameters. And remember, after every adjustment, always make sure to decrease or increase the light intensity, as your light source will change, therefore the intensity should change too. When I finished with the geometry, I applied the material wrapper to the object, and at that point I realized something was wrong. Sometimes a very strange bug happens, which I cannot really figure out when, why or how it happens, but this was the case in the scene. My next step was to add the map to the environment slot, where normally you don't need to do. I made a copy of my map and I added that map to the environment slot, and immediately I've noticed the improvement. The image was not burned, but now it was missing my shadows. I quickly checked the shadow matte of the room object if it was activated and with the correct settings. Everything was alright there, and I had to figure out quickly something else. I didn't want to let Edwin down. Then I've decided to turn off all the slots in the environment panel and start one by one activating him back again. I wanted to trace what was the causing the issue. For one last time, before I start with my next step of the plan, I tried again if the background option from the vray frame buffer would work or not, and sadly without success, as you can see. But I knew I was close to that solution. So I turned it back again, the environment map, and I've removed entirely the map from the vray frame buffer. And here is what I did next. I've decided to create a new vray material wrapper and apply it to the room object. Check by checkbox, I was looking if something would break the image again. everything was working as a Swiss watch, and on my next move I've decided to turn the lamp off. Just for fun, who knew what will happen?
Voy a la playa, había subido la marea.
I nearly cried from the results. I really had a proper shadows. The image was not affected or burned, and I had a smile on my face. I hope you have a smile on your face too right now. I was happy with the hour-long troubleshooting, and I didn't want to lose more time, so I turned on all the checkboxes in the render setup and everything was working like a charm. And before I tell you about what was the outcome of this troubleshooting with vray, I'd like to ask you to watch the video at the end of this one. Or instead, if you have watched all the videos so far on this channel, leave a like, comment or share this video and channel with your friends who are interested in virtual staging. This will motivate me to make more videos and help the community. And now, key points. Edwin had done his scene well, except the double walls and the background in the vray frame buffer. But in fact, that was not the main issue causing this. It was the bug which appears randomly in some scenes. Let's say that every time when you experience such a problem, try the following troubleshooting. Reset the material wrappers or change the light and turn it on and off. This might help you, and you never know. And the scene, it might get some benefits from adding 2 additional lights over there. I hope it was helpful to you guys. I'm George with Virtual Staging. See you in the next video.